that I am up to no good.
Hello my friends, welcome to the 4th episode of Cantipotterpodcast, a Harry Potter and Wizarding World podcast hosted by Akshay Nair. Thank you for being here and listening to me speak about Harry Potter from my dining room when there are various other professional people with way better production quality and content quality than I have. But then also, you're sticking here with me. So thank you. Thank you for that. And I really want to say that I mean it a lot. I sound like I'm thanking you for the sake of it, but I mean it. I mean it from the bottom of my soul. Thank you all. With this place to share my views on each chapter, I feel like I am at least talking to actual people rather than talking to my action figures which just stare at me. I feel if they could talk, they would be shouting at me to just shut the hell up and stop talking about the wizarding world the whole day and night. As I have mentioned before, this is not my first time reading the Harry Potter books. I have read them all once before. This is the second time around, and this time I will be reading this from the perspective of an adult rather than angry, complaining little twat of a teenager that I was. Since I have a lot to talk about in this episode, and we will cover chapter 5 from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I will just start with this episode. So, the chapter 5, the Diagon Alley. This chapter started the morning after the aftermath of the eventful night when Hagrid came and said to Harry that he is a wizard. Hagrid also taught a very good lesson to the Dursleys. When Harry woke up, the first thing he thought was last night would have been one of his many lucid dreams. And when he will open his eyes, he would still be in the cupboard under the stairs. But this time, it was not one of these dreams, but it was the reality. Hagrid was sleeping next to him, and he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. Harry felt that happy. Here, we were also introduced to the wizard currencies when Hagrid got a newspaper delivered from an owl, and he told Harry to give the owl 5 nuts. This is when Harry realized, as they had to go to London to buy things for Hogwarts, he didn't have any money. And in the last chapter, if we come into the context of this particular scene, the last night, Uncle Vernon also made it specifically clear that he will not pay a single dime to Harry for studying in this wizarding school. So that's why Harry is thinking that he didn't have any money for him to go to this wizarding school. Before going on and explaining about all the factors about Harry not having money, or how would he take the money, or would he borrow the money from the Dursleys, I believe this is the perfect time for me to explain about the wizarding currencies, as Hagrid will introduce Harry to Gringotts, the wizarding bank. Let's call this session where I give detailed information about anything related to the wizarding world as, let me think of something nice that makes sense. I got an even better idea. Let's have an imaginary voice assistant for us in this podcast. We can call this voice assistant of us as Charlie. Charlie would make sense, as Charlie Weasley would be introduced to you all in the next chapter, and he is one of the Weasley children. Also, Since J.K. Rowling has not talked about him or kept him in a scene for more than a page, we will set things right. And thus, Charlie will be our Canti Potter podcast very own virtual assistant, who will explain the details of the wizarding world to all of us, all the way from Romania, whenever we call him. So, what do you say? Should we test this? Let's see. Hey Charlie, can you please explain us about Gringotts and the wizarding currency systems?
Hello everyone. Let's talk about Gringotts Wizarding Bank. Fun fact, I believe Bill would have been a better person to explain to you all about this as he works there. But nevertheless, today I will try to explain about the only wizarding bank in Great Britain that is owned and operated by goblins. It was founded by a goblin named Gringott in 1474. Its main offices were located around the north side of Diagon Alley in London, England. In addition to storing money and valuables for wizards and witches, one could go there to exchange muggles' money for wizarding money. According to Rubeus Hagrid, other than Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Gringotts is the safest place in the wizarding world. Before talking about wizarding money, let me just take a quick look at Norbert, as she seems to have gotten into another fight. Okay, sorry for keeping you all waiting. Now let me explain about the wizarding currencies. Wizarding money comes in coins only. There are no galleon bills. As such, wizards have money pouches that they typically hang off their belts or under their robes rather than wallets. There are 17 nuts in a sickle and 29 sickles in a galleon. It is believed that the odd numbers of nuts in a sickle and sickles in a galleon are intended as a comment on British money before decimalization, with pounds, shillings, and pence being in an odd ratio to each other. If we convert our galleon to pounds, 1 galleon is equal to 5 pounds. That's it for today's session with Charlie. It was a pleasure meeting you all. I would be just a call away if you need more help. Bye.
Thank you, Charlie, for this information. Since Charlie has explained about the wizarding currency systems to you all, let's go back into the book to Harry and Hagrid over their adventure to London. During their way to London, Harry asked Hagrid, "How did you get here?" And here, Hagrid answered that he flew here. So it means, did he... Okay, at the top of my head, I could figure out 3 ways that he could get here. One, okay, I can't speak of it because these are all like spoilers. So for those who, how could I put it? Okay, but for those who have read this book, I just want to confirm about how did he get here. Was he talking about the way the wizards travel, which starts with an A and ends with T? So for those who are listening to this podcast and have not read past book 4, don't even do a Google search about it, as it would be a very big spoiler for you all. So when the time comes for this, I would again call Charlie and he will explain to you about the wizarding traveling patterns or the ways wizards travels. Till then, who has read this book till now, who have read the whole series like me, please tell me that what you think, how Hagrid had transported himself, or how did Hagrid came to where Harry was. You can message me on Twitter or on Instagram. For Twitter, the username is cantipotterpod, that is CANTIPOTTERPOD, and for Instagram it is cantipotter_podcast. So you can text me over there so that we can have a chat and understand, or even we can talk about various theories and we can also even talk about fan fictions. That is a really good idea. Probably once I am done with once I am done with the book 1, probably I will read a fan fiction of something that is related to the first book. Probably. If there is any, you can send me over to you can send me the link of that fanfictions in my Instagram or Twitter account. Okay, sorry for going through the tangent. Once again, we can come back to the chapter. Hagrid told Harry about the Wizarding Ministry of Magic and about the Wizarding newspaper that is called Daily Prophet. It is also worth keeping in mind that the ministry wanted Albus Dumbledore to be their minister, but he never left Hogwarts. So Cornelius Fudge got the job, and even though he got the job, he takes advice from Albus Dumbledore whenever he has doubt. And Hagrid said that every day or even every morning, Cornelius Fudge sends an owl to Dumbledore to take his advice over various ministry matters that he has I have a confusion with. So keep this in mind, like how Cornelius Fudge thinks he can take advice from Dumbledore and he is dependent on Dumbledore. That's just a thing that you should keep in the back of your head. So then Harry and Hagrid reached London, and that's when Hagrid said Harry to take a look at the letter that he gave him the last night, because in that letter, alongside the invitation to Hogwarts, there was also a list of things that Harry needed to purchase before coming to his Hogwarts. So I would be reading out these things, and I also want to apologize for my pronunciation beforehand, as since now you all have understood that I am not able to speak very clearly. So this is the best thing that I could do, and once again I'm really sorry for butchering the name or even pronouncing the things that they want not clearly, not in the best way. So let's start. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First year students will require 3 sets of plain work robes, that is black, 1 plain pointed hat, black for they wear, 1 pair of protective gloves, dragonhide or similar, 1 winter cloak, black with silver fastening. Also, please note that all pupils should carry their clothes with a name tag. Set of books. All students should have a copy of each of the following: the Standard Book of Spells Grade 1 by Marinda Goshawk, A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot, Magical History by Adela Burt Wolfing, sorry for butchering the name, A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Eric Switch, 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philida Spore. Is she somewhat related to Professor Sprout? I don't know. Just a thought I had. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philida Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenis Jiger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Other equipments that students should carry: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, 1 set of glass or crystal phials, 1 telescope, and 1 set of brass scales. Students can also bring an owl or cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first year students are not allowed their own broomstick. After reading this letter, for me at least, it was very difficult to read because I was not able to pronounce anything clearly. After reading this letter, for Harry, he had a very valid question that he wanted to ask Hagrid. Can we buy all this in London? Hagrid answered, if you know where to go. After walking for some time, that is, let's consider walking for Hagrid and running for Harry to keep up with Hagrid's huge strides. Because you should remember, Hagrid is a giant and Harry is a 11-year-old child. And that too, he is more, as JK had mentioned, I think so in the chapter first, he's more slender and had a less growth spurt than other 11-year-old that there are. So that's also we should keep in mind. After following Hagrid by running after him, Hagrid and Harry reached the Leaky Cauldron. So Leaky Cauldron is a place that by the outside it looks a very shabby, old, battered place, and Hagrid said that this is a famous place for the wizards. And Harry also noticed that all the muggles who were walking past by this place didn't even notice this place. So I think so that it is because these wizards have kept some type of protective charm over it so that one cannot see what's inside the Leaky Cauldron, or the muggles would see this Leaky Cauldron as some other building that's not relevant to them. I don't know, that's one of my theory, and I don't know how right I am, but once Harry entered this place, it was a very tiny, grubby looking pub that was very dark and shabby. Here, we were introduced to an old barman named Tom, who was quite bald and looked like a gummy walnut. I don't know what a gummy walnut is. I know what a walnut is, but what's a gummy walnut? I don't know. Please do comment down below, or even ping me in the social media and tell me what a gummy walnut is. Then Hagrid introduced Harry to the gummy walnut guy, and as soon as he introduced Harry to the gummy walnut guy, the busy pub at once became completely silent, and everyone was looking at Harry. Then there was a great scrabbling of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. During this scene, we were introduced to Daedalus Diggle, and he had once bowed down to Harry in a muggle shop when he was with Aunt Petunia. Then he met Dorcas Corkford, who shook Harry's hand again and again and kept coming back for more. And at last they met Professor Quirrell, a pale, nervous young man who was stammering, and introduced himself as the Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts while grasping at Harry's hand. And after almost 10 minutes, Hagrid had to drag Harry away from the crowd in the Leaky Cauldron out into a small walled courtyard where there was nothing but a dustbin and a few weeds. One more thing that I think so we need to note is that Hagrid over here gave a bit of introduction about Professor Quirrell to Harry. He said Professor Quirrell had a nasty incident with vampires in the Black Forest, and he has never been the same since. This, I felt, was an abrupt ending to his story, and this mainly made me a bit more curious, that I wanted to know more what happened to him. Now, since we were introduced to Diagon Alley for the first time, let me read from the book so that we could explain this magical sequence at once. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the dustbin. 3 up, 2 cross, he muttered. Right, stand back, Harry. He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella, that is his wand. The brick he had touched quivered. It wriggled in the middle. A small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid. An archway onto a cobbed street with twists and turns out of sight. Welcome to Diagon Alley, to all the listeners of Cantipotterpodcast. And I also want to say, this is the first actual experience of us and Harry with the Wizarding World. Prior to this, it was a Muggle world where wizards were there, but now we are properly in the Wizarding World. Once Harry entered Diagon Alley, there was a variety of shops with things he could never have seen in his life, and in the whole hustle and bustle of the streets, he wished he had 8 more eyes, just like spiders, because he was familiar with being around spiders. as we were told in the second chapter. Remember when I talked about how Harry was not afraid of spiders, and a normal 10 to 11-year child would have been. Once they were inside the Diagon Alley, they were first headed to Gringotts, as they had to withdraw Harry's money, and on their way back, they saw various shops. When they entered Gringotts, which is a snowy white building, they saw a goblin guard who was a head shorter than Harry. On the second pair of doors, on their entry on Gringotts, there were words engraved upon them, which read, "Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So, if you seek beneath our floor a treasure that never was yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there." I just wanted to read this out because this is something that I feel would be important, probably in the later books. So that's why I just wanted to read it loud and make sure that you all would also have kept a grasp of one or two lines in this particular instance, or in this particular sentence that I've talked about. Once they entered the bank, Harry could see 100 more goblins who were sitting on high stools behind the long counter. Hagrid then talked to a free goblin and told him that they wanted to withdraw money from Harry's vault, and also gave a letter from Albus Dumbledore and said, "It is about you know what in the vault 713. Then they were taken to the vault by a goblin named Griphook. Yes. They were taken to their respective vaults by the goblin named Griphook. During all this, Harry didn't even ask Hagrid what this thing was. I know that Hagrid had told him that not to talk about it or mention about it to anyone, but to be frank, Harry didn't even try to ask him about it. One reason for this is what I had mentioned about in my previous episodes, like certainly in the second episode, where I had talked about how it was forced upon Harry to never ask questions, and like I said then, this will turn out to be a very common pattern in this series. Since it is a very common pattern, I think so one thing that we could do by going forward in this podcast is to keep a counter on various common patterns that would be again coming back in this series. So I feel this is one of them. So let's mark the counter as 1 for when Harry didn't ask question when necessary. I'll keep a counter, and every time this comes up, I will be updating it and I'll be telling to you all. I remember the item they were talking about, and now it seems so obvious when I'm reading about that particular item that from the Vault 713, how obvious it is. If we look at this from a perspective of a grown adult, the whole book is solved. But if I look at the perspective of the target audience of this book, it definitely seems to be a good way to introduce something important and give a hint about it without even talking much about it. Because all the children will be interested in knowing what it is, and since we are not told about whatever the thing that Hagrid wanted from the Vault 713 is, but as a child, we would definitely had forgotten about this the very next page with all the information that J.K. Rowling had tried to give us throughout this whole world building that she did. Once we got out of the bank after taking the money, we got to know that Harry's real identity is Richie Rich. Yes, his vault is full of money, and even if he does not work for his entire life, he can lead a happy, luxurious one.